And with that, we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the first virtual town hall of 2023 held by the members of the Board of County Commissioners. I'm Dylan Blaylock with Clackamas County's Public and Government Affairs Department, and I'll be coordinating public comments for tonight's meeting. Tonight's topic is wildfire preparation and prevention in Clackamas County. Joining us tonight from the Board of County Commissioners, Chair Tootie Smith and Commissioners Paul Savas, Mark Shull, and Commissioner Ben West, and I believe that Martha Schrader is trying to join in, but I will welcome her when she does. My thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. Also joining us is Clackamas County Interim Disaster Management Director Daniel Neibauer. My thanks to him. Here's how tonight is going to work. In a moment, we will hear brief welcoming remarks from Chair Smith, and then we will hear a short presentation from Director Neibauer. After that, I'm going to play a brief video from Clackamas Fire District No. 1 Battalion Chief Brent Olson, who we filmed yesterday specifically for this town hall. After that, we will switch to the public feedback section of the town hall. At that time, we will take live comments over Zoom. I will also be reading emails that have previously come into us or that come into us now. You can email your comment at any time during the session to clackonews@clackamas.us. But if you do, please do try to keep the email brief, as priority is given to those providing live comments over Zoom. And we'll go ahead and put that email address in the chat now. Tonight's event will go until 7:30 p.m. or until we run out of comments and questions. Commissioners will have the chance to provide closing thoughts starting several minutes before we finish. The session will be archived to YouTube tomorrow on the Clackamas County government channel. And with that, we're going to hear some welcoming comments from Chair Smith. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dylan, and thanks to all the members of the public for joining us tonight. This is our first town hall of 2023, and the topic is disaster preparedness and wildfires, a very important topic. Every commissioner here knows how important it is for our residents to feel safe and secure. We are absolutely dedicated to preparing and building resiliency for disaster response and recovery, such as wildfires. In 2021, the wildfire in Clackamas County was a serious event. Some of you here tonight, like me, lived through it and don't need a reminder. Some of you may have recently moved into the lovely rural areas of our county, so let me take a moment and set the stage. At its peak, over 52,000 people were in a level 3 go now evacuation zones, and that does not include the countless number of livestock that had to be moved out or that ranchers could not justify leaving behind. Nearly 200,000 acres were burned, which is roughly 15% of the county. 62 homes were burned, along with over 200 other structures such as barns, garages, outbuildings, and even a church. State Highway 224, which is an important access route to our East County residents, was closed. These are personal numbers, personal events, and that's why we're here tonight. We are once again in wildfire season, and while some homes have been rebuilt and the highway reopened, we want to help you get informed about what the county can do and is doing. We also want to hear your questions and concerns about preparing yourself. We will try to get all of your questions. However, if we don't respond directly, please don't take it as a sign we don't care. We do. We want to hear from as many people as possible. Disaster Management has put their contact information in the slides, so you can reach out on your own also. And with that, Dylan, it's your turn.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to point out that Commissioner Martha Schrader is now with us. So welcome to Commissioner Schrader, and thanks for joining us. Okay.
Glad to be here.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you. Now, Director Neibauer will provide a brief presentation. Director Neibauer.
Sure. Thank you, Dylan. I just want to give an update on the last few years since the 2020 wildfires and the things that the Disaster Management Department has been doing. So I'll start a little bit with some of the planning that we've been doing. We've done a significant operation to our county's emergency operations plan, which is a plan that outlines how the county organizes its response, both with our internal and external resources. We've done the development of children and youth in disaster guidance that focuses on children and youth in disaster situations and includes guidance that is centered on how we need to create plans and response operations to coordinate resources to support them. We reviewed our current county plans and developed a framework to help identify gaps in what plans we may need or don't have and which plans need to be updated, and we're working actively to do those. We've worked with our Public and Government Affairs Department to update our public information plan to make sure that we're getting information out earlier. We're actively participating with the Mount Hood Wildfire Partnership, which bridges fire services, emergency management, first responders, and community member organizations to work collectively on wildfire risk reduction. And we're working with community response partners to try and bring that model to the county as a whole. We have several in-progress plans that we're continuing to work on. One is around evacuation zones for wildfire and other type incidents, and we're going to be moving into a community engagement portion soon, where we're going to go out to the community, begin to talk with them and look at the zones and how we have them currently framed. We've got some disaster zone planning going on. Currently, we're working on establishing an understanding of certain resilience factors and identifying those areas where we can better increase the resilience of specific plans. Also working on a recovery planning framework so that post-disaster, we can help the county come back quicker following all small or large-scale disaster. We're also working on revisions of our wildfire protection plan and our natural hazard mitigation plans, which are longer-term plans that looks at where we can make investments to help mitigate the impacts of disaster and wildfire and others on the county. Operationally, we've changed how we respond on given the initial notification of a disaster. We're getting individuals to be able to send out alerts and update the GIS maps faster than we did in 2020. And we also partner with fire and our sheriff's office representative quickly at dispatch to make that happen. At the beginning of every fire season and every time there's a red flag warning, we meet with county departments and develop an initial action plan so we know who to contact and who to establish and establish preliminary objectives. Other things we've done, we've conducted and participated in community wildlife preparedness events. We've revised our duty officer program, increased our alert and warning capabilities to get those out with more information and get them out faster. We've procured a new crisis information management software, which allows us to pass information amongst county departments, as well as to our external departments and external partners, and initiate implementation of that program. We've contracted with debris monitoring and removal services, so we won't be dependent on the state for those services. We've also revised and relaunched what we call our Emergency Operations Center Academy, so that we can increase the amount of county staff that are trained to work in the Emergency Operations Center. We've also relocated the amateur radio emergency communications room to be closer to where the Emergency Operations Center currently is. And we've guided and assisted the Clackamas long-term recovery group with long-term recovery for those individuals impacted by the 2020 Labor Day wildfires. And we're working to change that group from a long-term recovery group to what we call a community organizations active in disasters that will help across the entire spectrum of the disaster cycle, anywhere from preparation to response, as well as recovery. And through all of that, we responded to 6 additional incidents in 2021, anywhere from fire to winter storms to shortages of chlorine that would use to treat water. In 2022, responded to 5 incidents, including a water curtailment in Wilsonville, public safety power shutoffs in preparation for a fire, the MacGyver fire, and then the December extreme cold, high wind, and flooding and winter storms. And so far this year, we responded to 3 fires: the Forest Park fire, the fire off of 224, and the fire in Malala. So keeping ourselves pretty busy and focusing on preparation in general, but a lot of things that will help us be better prepared for a wildland fire.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Director Neibauer. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and play a brief video from Clackamas Fire District No. 1 Battalion Chief Brent Olson, who we filmed yesterday specifically for this town hall. He talks about the 2023 fire season, defensible space, tips for the public, and how the region and Clackamas Fire is now better prepared than they were 3 years ago. And the video is a little less than 5 minutes.
The 23 wildland fire season is actually coming off to a relatively normal start. It's been most impactful to us here in kind of the west slope of the Cascades, specifically in Northwest Oregon. As residents may have seen and smelled, we did have the Tunnel 5 fire that was in the Washington side in the gorge, but we also had the fire up on the Mount Hood, and we've had a few local fires here as well. The conditions out there on the landscape are very dry, as I'm sure everybody is understanding at this point in the summertime. So we remind everyone to be very diligent of outdoor activities and anything like that that could potentially start a fire. As far as the rest of the season, that remains to be seen. Outlooks do show that we will remain in a dry and warmer than normal pattern, probably through September. And that very well could lead to more wildfires throughout the state. Well, defensible space is really that area immediately around your home or property that is able to be defended by firefighters in case of wildfire. So what does that mean? It really is about giving firefighters a chance to really defend your home in case wildfire is imminently impacting it. So some of the best steps to take is I think of it in terms of a bullseye, and at the center of that bullseye is your house. And immediately surrounding the house, you need to have that area void of things that can start on fire, such as bark dust and small flammable plants and things of that nature. Because as fire comes through, people often think that it's the flaming front that's going to impact your house and light it on fire. And in fact, that's not the case. The case really is that embers are thrown in front of the fire, and those embers collect and they start very, very small fires in and next to your house or on the roof. And that then leads to your house catching on fire. I think some other steps that people can take is really creating a plan. Having those documents, those items that are irreplaceable out and ready to be taken at a moment's notice. Another thing that people may not think about are their pets. Having a plan for pets, large animals in particular, having the means to get those animals out into a safe location long before the fire comes. As firefighters, we're going to give you as much notice as we can in regards to evacuation, but those during the initial attack phase may come very, very quickly. And so having those things pre-planned and having the ability to get your animals and all of the important items out of the home and into safety is really some of those other steps that can be taken long before the wildfire actually comes. Well, since 2020, the region and specifically Clackamas Fire have taken numerous steps in regards to our preparedness for wildfires. In particularly, we've conducted many more trainings to our personnel staff and also our support staff to be better prepared if wildfire breaks out. We have had one significant fire in district already this year, back the 1st of June, and that fire was much more successful in regards to how we handled it as an agency. And fortunately, during that event, no structures were impacted. We continue to look for opportunities to better prepare ourselves. On the response side, the fire district has stood up a 20-person hand crew, and that hand crew is available for wildfire response. So these are just some of the few things that Clackamas Fire has done and will continue to do to be better prepared for wildfires, not only in 2023, but also looking forward to the future.
Our thanks to Battalion Chief Brent Olson for taking the time yesterday. There's a couple resources I wanted to share related to his comments. The first is the Northwest Interagency Coordination Center site, which Chief Olson informed us is an excellent resource for the latest outlooks for the fire season. We'll put that in the chat. And second, the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office recently posted a new website that has thorough tips on defensible space. That's at OregonDefensibleSpace.org. We'll put that in the chat as well. And with that, we will move into questions and comments from the public. If you have a comment to make, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. That could be on the top or bottom of your Zoom screen, depending on your device. If you're on the phone, you can hit *9. That lets me know you have a comment, and you can hit *6 to unmute yourself when that time is ready. Okay, let's take a look real quick, Madam Chair. Okay, Madam Chair, based on the number of hands that have gone up, I believe we can offer our residents up to the normal 3 minutes of comments. Does that sound good to you? Very good. Okay, great. Okay, again, I will also be reading emails that come in to us. You can email your comments in at any time during the session to clackonews@clackamas.us, but do try to keep those brief, sharing the email again in the chat now. And please do know that all email comments we receive tonight, whether we get to them or not, will be shared with the board after this meeting. Okay, and with that, we'll get started. Looks like the first person with the hand up is Allie Callow Spencer. Allie Callow Spencer, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Very good. And you have 3 minutes. You're live with the board. Thanks very much. Go ahead.
At the time of the 2021 fires, I was Gladstone's CERT operations manager. The one thing that came out of that was the lack of shelter space. They were using Seventh Day Adventist and the Canby Fairgrounds, and I think even some Mason lodges. But what I witnessed was that unless you actually had an RV, there was not a lot of shelter that was available for folks to evacuate to. So what improvements has Clackamas made since then about providing shelters, and particularly shelters that could provide indoor air quality?
Daniel, you want to answer that question?
Sure, we'll talk about that. We do have relationships with a few schools in the area that we would have opened in 2020, but we were concerned about where they were in the fire path, so we didn't. We do have a couple other community-based organizations that we do have relationships with to do that. We are concerned about the proximity of those shelters, of course, with what the size of the fire it would be. We also have support from the Oregon Department of Human Services that now has purchased air purifying systems. So once we set up a shelter, we can set that up and help clean the air for whichever shelter we choose to use to be able to do that. So we've definitely continued to increase the relationships with different folks that have large venues, large facilities where we can do that. And we meet pretty much at the beginning of every fire season with the Red Cross as well to kind of cross-check and see what list they have and what resources they'll have available for the fire season.
Daniel, I want to have a follow-up question for you. If people are being evacuated, will they be told to go to a certain place, and how do they get those alerts?
Sure. Once we send out that initial alert, we'll be following on information for what we're going to call a temporary evacuation point. And of course, as we begin the evacuation, it's usually very immediate. And so one of the things we'll do is tell people to go to this temporary evacuation point while we are setting up a shelter. If we know the fire's there, we can set up a shelter ahead of time. But we'll go to the temporary evacuation point, go there as the shelter is being set up, and once it's ready to open, which is usually about an hour or two, then we'll be able to direct people to what location that is. And information will be going out in the public alerts with that initial evacuation, and then follow-on information will come through social media as well as traditional media and our website.
And it's also been my experience that the Red Cross doesn't shelter individuals experiencing houselessness, which is growing, especially as things in Multnomah County change. What considerations have been put for there? We've
had specific conversations with the Red Cross on that, and they've informed us that they do not have any kind of discrimination for who comes into their shelter. Do that. We also have talked with our social services folks, and they have plans that they can use as well to make sure that everyone who needs a place to be and is in danger from a wildfire will have a safe place to go.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Allie, for the question. Daniel, as long as they're talking about public alerts and emergency notifications, should we go over those real quick for the audience?
I'm happy to,
Great.
If the chair is willing.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
So let me All right.
Chairman, just briefly talk about the three kind of emergency notifications that we have available to us that we can get out relatively quickly. The first one is public alerts opt-in, and Dylan will put up a slide that's going to show, maybe we can put it in the chat. I encourage strongly everyone to sign up for public alerts. Basically, you can go into this system, you identify where you are, and you can identify any one of those options for being notified of an emergency, whether that as phone, voice, text, email. And that really gives us a good sense to say when we know there's a danger in that area, we can send out that notification. And we use that one most commonly because we know you want to get the alert. We know you want to be aware of it. The second alert you see there is the wireless emergency alerts. And that one's based off of cell phone towers, and the cell phone towers kind of guessing if you're in that area. We use that one a little bit less. We use it particularly for when there's life safety type issues that we think are in that area, because it does often reach a larger area than we want. And I'm sure many of you have maybe experienced that with the fire that was off 224 or off of Malala. When we did send out some of those alerts, they went a little bit further than we wanted, but we do that. And we're aware of that because we want the people in that specific area to know right away. And that is one that we send to your alerts. You do have the capability to turn that off on your phone. We, of course, strongly discourage that because it is one way of getting you that notification. The final type of alert you have is the emergency alert system, which people are probably most familiar with, the tones that are come across the radio or the television. Those hit the entire Portland Metro area media market. So we use those very sparingly. Some people may have seen recently that the state used it and it didn't quite work the way they wanted it to. So we don't use that one often, because when we do, it hits Washington County, Multnomah County, Columbia County, and Clark County. But if there's an important enough message that would send a life safety alert, we would use that alert. So we do have these tools in our bag to use, and we use them hopefully the right way to get the right message out to the people that we think are in danger.
And here is that. Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, and here is our website. Please go there, and it will give you information on this thing I just said about the different types of alerts, as well as how to sign up for those alerts. And I also ask that if you have signed up for alerts in the past and perhaps you have moved or gotten a new phone number or a new email address, it would be great if you could go in. If you remember your login information, please do so and change your numbers, your address, whatever it is. And if you don't, go ahead and create a duplicate account there. And if you can let us know, we can get rid of your old one, or we can help you out with that. Don't hesitate to do that. But always updated phone, email, and address is very important so we can get the alerts to you the right way.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, I see Nancy has her hand raised. I'm going to go to you in just 1 second, Nancy. We'll go ahead and drop in an email first from Tyler. What is the county doing, either independently or in coordination with other agencies, to properly manage our forests? For example, clearing debris, cutting trees, etc., which has been known to be a strong preventative measure against spreading fires. So, question about coordination with forest management.
Would you like me to address that?
Scholl. Yeah, Commissioner Scholl can follow up.
Yes. In Clackamas County, we are often in a communication with those entities that manage forest lands in Clackamas County. It's a big job because we have forest lands managed by the Federal Department of Forestry, the Oregon Department of Forestry, the Bureau of Land Management. We have forest land managed by our Clackamas County Parks and Forestry. And then also we have a couple 100,000 acres of commercial forest lands and almost that amount in privately held forest lands. So the big problem that I see in Clackamas County with managing our forests to prevent fires is the incredible bureaucracy that we have to work with when dealing with the agencies I just mentioned, less of course, the Clackamas County Parks and Recreation. So there's always new regulations coming out. always updated forestry management plans, the habitat conservation plans that typically get to become more restrictive, restrict more and more harvest, and make our job of fire prevention that much more difficult. All I can say to you on that is, like I said before, we're in communications with those entities all the time, trying to do what we can to effect the action to bring a greater level of forestry management, sensible harvest, and fire reduction. So that's about all I can tell you on that. If anybody needs any information on that kind of thing, give me an email and I'll send you some information from those entities I just mentioned. Thanks.
To follow up on that, Dylan, Clackamas County has about 750,000 acres of timberland, of which only 2,000 acres is under our direct control and management on county forest lands. So you can see it makes the management, as Commissioner Schultz said, extremely difficult to convince our federal partners, gee, you should clean up the forest. That's been an argument that's been going on for many, many decades. But the best thing we can do is prepare ourselves and be the first responders in the event of a horrific wildfire, which we all hope never happens. But thank you, Commissioner Scholl.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Scholl. All right, I'm just going to remind the many attendees that we have tonight. Please go ahead and hit the raise hand function if you would like to ask a question to your county commissioners. We'll go now to Nancy Padberg. Nancy, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself. Very good. You have 3 minutes with commissioners. Go right ahead.
I just want to tell you, Ant Farm has been absolutely fantastic in Sandy. They came to our whole neighborhood. I was the first person to sign up and they did a fantastic job. I live in Zigzag, half a mile, all forest, and it's been fantastic. The problem is it requires maintenance because big leaf maple trees get more sprouts, and so then you have to keep trimming and all that kind of stuff. So it's not over with. You have to keep doing it on a constant basis. We have a lot of old people up here, so they don't always do that. We also have an issue with cell service. AT&T was great. Now it's crappy, and we sometimes have 4 days where we don't have cell service on weekends. I've called them to the FCC, but what I do is get a walkie-talkie, and the neighbors now are getting walkie-talkies. So at least we can communicate each other, get on the same line and stuff like that, just to communicate if we don't have cell service. People don't have landlines anymore. Some people don't have Wi-Fi, and if they have Wi-Fi, sometimes it's AT&T, no cell service. So just Ant Farm, if you can take advantage of it, it's fantastic. And then just make sure you have a walkie-talkie just in case you don't have any cell service.
Okay, thank you very much.
Daniel, you have your hand up.
With them on many things, and we are so appreciative of their field reduction program and everything else they've done to support the community around this. So that was a great observation, and thank you, Nancy, for talking about them.
Excellent. Yes, thank you very much for the comment, Nancy. Okay, great. I see a few more hands have gone up. Great. Let's go to Leonard. Leonard Shaber, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Very good. You have 3 minutes with commissioners. Also, if you can identify just what area you live in would be great. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for having this gathering. And I live in the west part of the county on Borland Road. We're closer to Walton. My question concerns communications. In the light of the recent lawsuits against the power companies, in any high wind event, they're going to be shutting off power pretty rapidly, so they won't be sparking fires, if you will. And along with that power shut off will go the communication towers will lose power. So what kind of a backup communication system is there in place or in planned for something like that?
Daniel?
Sure. Dylan, do you want to bring up the
Communications when the power's out?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's definitely one that we've been working with the state as well as with PGE on how to address those. So the cell phone towers, there's varying different reports of how long they should last. They should have a backup power that could be anywhere from 12 to 72 hours. We don't often see it last that long. I believe it was Nancy mentioned about radios is a good way to do that. Identifying if you have anybody that has experience or has an amateur radio is good. We're expanding out. We have a great amateur radio group that works with the county during a disaster to put out messages, and we're going to be working with them to get out that messaging. The hand crank AM radios or the weather radios can be a way to get some communication and find out what's going on. We can push messages on that. We will say that during an evacuation, law enforcement, if it is safe and they have the resources, and what we've seen every single time in the past is they'll still likely go to door, but that's going to be when it's a level 3 kind of go right now scenario. So they won't be giving you notifications of any earlier levels. They would be doing those right off. And we are working with the state. We are looking at the possibility of seeing if the state can talk to cell phone providers to get increased power to the towers to keep them up longer. Do that. We have the capability at the county to request mobile cell phone towers that can have power. They just don't have a great range. So we are working with the state to be able to talk about those as well. Unfortunately, the best kind of guaranteed answer is if you're aware that the power is going to go out with you, please make your plans now. Figure out where you have the possibility, whether you believe you need to evacuate or begin to work on the amateur radio or the handheld radios, but begin to make those plans now for how you can be able to communicate. The one other bit that I will tell you is checking with your broadband internet provider, because often if you can power your modem, you can still get a Wi-Fi signal. Now you'll still have to have something that powers that modem. That's not true in every case, but checking with your internet provider and ask them that if you were losing power and if you provide power to your modem, will that give you broadband? Then you can get information on the internet, and many cell phones now will also allow you to place calls using your Wi-Fi. And so that would be a method to look there as well.
Very good. And Daniel, of course, this screen is just a shot of the many resources we have available on the Disaster Management Counties page with the preparedness resources for weather resource guide and making a plan and what to have in your emergency supply kit, just to add to the communication that the power is out. Okay. Very good. Well, thank you very much, Leonard, for the question. Okay, and with that, we'll go to, I do see we have a hand raised from Stan, but we'll go to him in just 1 second. Another email that we've gotten from Jamie. Jamie, does financial aid or technical assistance exist to help individual homeowners or neighborhoods mitigate the severity of future fire events, e.g. fire-wise planning or the cleanup of overgrown neighborhood green spaces?
Daniel?
Certainly, some financial assistance does exist. Often it comes through your fire district. So a good place to start is to contact your fire district and see what resources they have available. It can be a variety of different things. Sometimes it can be fuels reduction. Sometimes it can be a small grant to help you rent a chipper so that you can chip some vegetation. There are a couple other community-based organizations that have grants, like the Ant Farm that was mentioned. The county does receive a grant from the Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management, and we're working on getting an agreement with Clackamas Fire. As a matter of fact, it was Battalion Chief Olson, who you just saw, to get out to begin to do those. And once that relationship is in place, both Clack Fire and Clackamas County will get out information on what services will be available between fuel reduction and the potential of creating fire-wise communities as well.
Very good. Thank you, Daniel. I'll also remind, we'll go to Stan real quick here. I'll also remind everyone in the audience, I am getting a lot of emails, which is great, but I'm not sure if I will get through them all. If you want to be sure your question or comment is posed, please do raise your hand over Zoom. It'll be much more likely to get to it with that. With that, we will go ahead to Stan. Stan, very good. You are on with your commissioners. Very good. You have 3 minutes. If you can just identify yourself and your general area of the county. Thank you very much.
Okay, my name is Stan Halley. I am the head of the emergency preparedness team for the Lad Hill Neighborhood Association. We cover 17 square miles, half in Clackamas County and half in Yamhill County. We have observed, in fact, my wife and I were driving in Canada on Vancouver Island, and there was a wildfire that had just started in the median on one of the rural roads. And 3 people had pulled over immediately, grabbed fire extinguishers from their cars and put the fire out. So one of the standing recommendations for every resident, everyone with a car, everyone with a truck, is have a fire extinguisher. You could be the first line of defense and really handle that thing before it becomes a big problem. That was my comment.
I love that. That's a great suggestion. Thank you. I think
Yeah.
commissioners all go out and buy one tomorrow for our cars.
All right.
Thanks, Dylan.
Very good. Thank you very much for that, Stan. Okay. I see Mike has his hand raised. Mike, we'll get to you in 1 second. Another email from Charla. Charla, why are we still dealing with fireworks almost every night? The 4th is over. How do we prevent these dangerous activities? Calling and taking pictures has no resolution. That's all that there was in the note. So it's about fireworks. Somebody's still hearing fireworks. Did you want to take it, Daniel?
Here, I can address very briefly. Unfortunately, answer may not be as complete as needed, but I did contact the sheriff's office and asked them about this, and they said, unfortunately, now fireworks are a very low priority for them. They do get to them when they can, but they often have higher priority calls and can't get onto those as quickly as they do other calls.
Okay, very good. Thanks for that, Daniel. All right, the hand that I see is up is Mike. Mike, go ahead. If you can unmute yourself, very good. You are on with Clackamas County Commissioners. Please identify yourself and the general area you're from. Thank you very much.
Dylan, thanks. My name is Mike Sabula. I'm the CPO chair of Sunnyside West Mount Scott. Daniel, you and I have talked before, and I'm always grateful to hear you and to learn from you. So thank you for taking time tonight. And commissioners also, thank you for joining. Daniel, could you talk for a minute about how the updated and improved community text and email notifications work so far this year? And what's been the citizen feedback?
Sure, great question. Our procedure for getting them out, I've been much happier with than what they've been in the past. I referred to it a little bit earlier, but I'll say in detail what we get is often a page from our dispatch, what we call CCOM, Clackamas County Communications, that they need an evacuation alert or notification out. Often, particularly in the case of the wildfires, thanks to PGE and their use of what they call the pano cameras, where they can see fires, we're often heading that way and monitoring the situation already. Once we get there, we sit next to a sheriff's office, a captain right now, as well as a fire district, we call representative, and with dispatch. And then we outline the area that needs to be evacuated. We call our GIS representatives who are usually in there, as well as our public information officer, and get that out. So we've gotten them out a lot faster than we have in the past, with which at least I feel a lot more information. We have seen a lot of the more overspray than I'd like to see in those alerts. For example, both the alert for 224 and Malala was received by my wife in Canby. So they're getting a little bit further than we want. I have not heard a lot of community comments about that, which I am hoping deals with asking the county's community members to be patient, knowing that those alerts will go out a little further perhaps than we intend, but that it's letting those people know that are in danger know that they are and how to get safe. So I'm feeling our alerting is getting better. We're still seeing the overspray. That's a technology issue at the federal level that we can't really address locally, but we're trying to use the right tools to get it out. And we've changed our procedure. And if we had fire or sheriff's office here, I'm hopeful they would reinforce that we're getting them out faster with more information.
And Daniel, it also sounds like what you're saying is that prior to the old method, that the messages are going out on a more timely basis than they might have previously.
The dispatch has always had the capability and always usually get out that very first alert unless we already happen to be on the way. So timeliness, I think has improved perhaps slightly, but we can get a lot more information out regarding the size of it. And we can relieve the dispatchers because they have a tremendous job of coordinating that entire response. So if I can take the burden of getting those alerts off, I try to do that as quickly as I can.
Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Mike, for the question. Daniel, as long as we're talking about the evacuations and the communications around it, maybe this is a good time to talk about the different evacuation levels that we have.
Sure.
Okay.
So Clackamas County uses the 3-level evacuation of what goes on there. And so the first one, and I'll start at level 3, because often, unfortunately, that's where we start with the fires. Is, you know, we don't see a fire coming. It's not forecasted. It's not like the weather. A fire starts, and then fire first responders get on the scene as quickly as they can. They assess the situation, and then they let us know what it looks like and if there's any dangers at risk. So very often you'll see that very first level 3 go evacuate now, immediately leave. That will be the first evacuation level that comes out. We don't like to do that. We prefer to go step through there, level 1, 2, and 3. So when that level 1 alert comes out, it really is that be aware, find your way to get information and stay informed of what's going on. This is the time to say, hey, what's my plan? Let me look at my plan again. Is my friend in town that I was going to go stay with? You know, do I have my kit? Do I know where my kit is? Let me make sure that everything's in that kit. Do I need any new medications that have to go in that kit? Do I have a small child that's grown and they need to switch the clothes in there so those clothes are better? Pets and livestock don't know what my plans are. That's really that level 1, be ready, is awareness. Level 2, when we get be set, that's what I would recommend. You start, if you have mobility issues, if you've got a lot of livestock, animals, some kind of concern about being able to evacuate quickly, you may want to consider evacuation. If not, that's when you take that emergency kit out of the closet or wherever you store it, put it in your car, put it next to your door. Definitely make that communication with, figure out where you're going to go with, whether it's friends or family. You know, where's that location? Maybe it's a shelter that the county has set up, but all of those need to be ready. You need to be able to get that in your car, if not in your car, and leave. Because when we hit level 3 in evacuation, that means we've assessed that there's a life safety issue for you right now. You need to go. There is no checking of your plans. There's no getting medication at this point. We want you to get in your car and leave and go immediately. We will send this alert out through whatever notifications we have, but be aware if communications aren't working well for whatever reason, it may be a sheriff deputy knocking on your door, letting you know what that's going on. So those are 3 levels. Like I said, we try to get them out 1, 2, and 3 if need be. We did manage a couple of the fires earlier this year to get those level 2s out earlier. I think that refers a little bit back to Mike's comment too, of us trying to get down to dispatch and listen to the fire commanders a little bit earlier and try to get a level 1 or 2 out before we do 3s, even in the beginning stages of a fire, knowing that it's really important information for community members to have as early as possible.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. And as attendees can see on the screen now, we have these evacuation levels available for print off this page listed here. We'll put that in the chat as well. We have it available in 12 different languages, so you can just go ahead and print it out, put it on the refrigerator or whatever. The other thing that we do, of course, at the county is these evacuation notices are posted in a number of places on the top of our website. I don't just mean the front page. When we turn on the emergency header on the website, it is at the top of all pages so people can quickly get to the information they need regarding fire safety. We also, of course, share it on our Facebook and Twitter presences, and the sheriff's office does the same thing.
I'll also add, if you would like those level 1, 2, and 3 on a refrigerator magnet and a couple other handouts, we have those. Please come to the county fair. We will happily give you one there. And if you can't make it there, give an email to us at Disaster Management. We will figure out a way to get you one.
Very good. Good plug for the fair. The commissioners will be at the fair this year, as they are every year on Tuesday, I think, for this year. I think it's every Tuesday with the fair. Very good. Okay. All right, great. I see a lot of hands up. That's great. We'll go first to Christian. Okay, Chris, just go ahead and unmute yourself. I think you have. You are on for 3 minutes. If you can just identify yourself and where you are. Thanks very much. Chris, if you're there, we can't hear. Oh, unfortunately, Chris seems to be gone. Okay, well, next hand up. Kathleen Rosinski. Okay, very good.
Yeah,
Kathleen, very good. Go ahead, go
yeah.
right ahead.
I was wondering, I have neighbors that will continue burning in their burn barrels when it's no burn. Is there a way that the fire department can let people know ahead of time that it's not just outdoor burning, but the burn barrels are being banned also?
Well, I would think so. I'm really
Yeah.
kind of shocked that people are still doing that now. Are you
Yeah.
saying now in August?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Kathleen, the easy way to do that is just contact your nearest fire station and let them know that somebody is violating the backyard burn ban. Well, we have backyard burn bans in every city and all throughout the county at this time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Because yeah, it really scares me, especially we're around the forest, looking around us. It's so dry and they're, starting their burn barrels and it's real scary.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathleen, for the question. Very good. Okay, we got 3 hands up. That's great. One quick email comment that we've received from Misty. I just wanted to say how impressed I was when we had the big fires in Estacada and Sandy a while back. The dissemination of information and the accessibility was great. I could tell you were very prepared and felt very confident in the information you provided. Thank you so much for putting in the time up front to keep us all safe. Okay, very good. Thank you very much to Misty for that comment. Next up, looks like Malia. Malia, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself.
All
Very
right.
good. Go ahead.
Hi,
Very
I'm Leah Capillis. I am the chair of the Emergency Preparedness Council's Communications Subcommittee and temporary for their communication or the Community Preparedness Subcommittee. And I just wanted to make a few comments to what other people have said, and that is I would strongly recommend, and we do carry a small shovel and a fire blanket in our vehicles, because you never know when you're going to have a fire and that fire extinguisher you're carrying may not work. And so a shovel and a fire blanket are great. And I'd also like to tell everybody that they should have a simple emergency bag in their car at all times, because you never know when you're going to get caught in an emergency. And those are priceless. And also I'd like to say that when communication goes down with our cell towers, two-way radios have already been mentioned, and those are going to be very important. And we'd like to encourage everybody in the neighborhoods to connect with two-way radios. And we're going to try to get it set up so that those people then can reach out and connect to ham radio operators that may be near them. And those ham radio operators are connected to the county. So we have ways of getting communication from the local areas using two-way radios to ham operators and then to the county. So that's where we're heading with communication. And that's all I have for now.
I'd like to thank you, Malia. I'd like to comment on that. If you have one of those two-way radios, of which I have a couple of them in my house, because we were evacuated, make sure they're charged, especially now, and/or make sure you have spare batteries for flashlights. And you can buy cell phone battery chargers too. And those little things kind of look like your cell phone, they're flat. And those work really good to keep your cell phone charged when your electricity goes out. And even though I was evacuated in zone 3 and it was very dire here, I was still able to use my cell phone. I was still able to use my cell phone during the ice storm. I just had to drive down the driveway a little bit to get reception. So that is possible, even though the power is out. A lot of areas, I happen to have Verizon, a lot of areas will have his cell phones available, but the key is keeping them charged with alternate devices. So you might want to be thinking about buying some of those. Thanks. Commissioner West.
Thank you so much, Chair. Just a couple thoughts around this. I think this is a really good workaround and creative. One thought was is when we had the ice storm, Charbonneau was really isolated on the other side of the river, and they lost all their cell phone and power, or they didn't have power, so they couldn't charge their cell phones. They lost that charging ability. And so there was some communication stuff going on. So your recommendation is good. So for people like, I don't know, my generation that don't even know, well, or even a little younger than me that don't even know what a rotary phone is. So these radios, now help me, I might just be asking a young person's question, a young homeowner's question. Do you need any specific training or understanding? Like, what is a channel? Do you have to use, what is a ham radio versus another type of radio? I mean, I honestly, like, I kind of have a gist of what this is, but I think there would be basic questions about, you know, like you talked about charging and storage, Chair, but like, is there a certain way you need to be like connected? How do you coordinate with your community with radios? So some of it's more than just going and buying a radio, I feel like maybe. And so I don't know what that means, but it sounds like some communities have taken upon themselves to just coordinate this. But it sounds like maybe no special training's needed.
Good question. I'm going to have Malia follow up after this. First of all, going out and buying a ham radio system is not going to be doable for most of us. I'll say that. They're older, they're very expensive, and there is training. You have to have antennas and towers. Now I have my radio and there's different channels on it, and I'm connected to certain people in the neighborhood, and it's basically line of sight. So if you have a big hill in front of you, that little radio probably won't jump over the hill. So you need line of sight on that. Malia, you want to finish up with that?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Tootie was kind of saying to begin with. There's different levels of radios. The simplest is the two-way walkie-talkies, and those are the least, well, they're not very expensive, and that's what most kids play with. I have found them to be the easiest to get people set up with. And what we did in our neighborhood was we picked a channel and a privacy code, and we're getting everybody with two-way radios, and everybody's programmed. So when they turn that on, they know what channel to go to. And so we can communicate as a neighborhood. If we have a hill problem, then we have certain neighbors who will be assigned to relay messages down to the other side of the hill. As far as ham radios go, you all have to be licensed to have those. And I guess I should go back and say on the two-way radios, since 2017, the federal government has now allowed those to be what's called FRS, which is Family Radio Service, and they also can broadcast on GMRS, which is General Mobile Radio Service. And GMRS radios require a license, but you don't have to take an exam. You just have to register yourself with the FCC. So the two-way radios working in the neighborhoods are a great way to go. And I guess one question I have is, how do we reach out to the community and the people to start teaching them about two-way radios and helping them get set up?
Well, that's a good question, Daniel. I don't know if there's classes exactly at Clackamas County, although the Emergency Preparedness Council, of which Malia Kuplis is a member and in charge and chair of the communications committee, has gone out to CPOs and hamlets and discussed this. And so, Ben, if you have a CPO hamlet in your area, maybe you want to do a little community organizing event. In my neighborhood, we've done something similar to Malia. We've contacted our neighbors ahead of time, and we've set up the little two-way radio system so we know what to do. And like I say, boy, make sure they're charged. You just don't realize. And make sure your cell phones have separate battery packs. I have 3 different charging units for my cell phone. Yeah, and I have a little radio, and hopefully I can drive to somewhere if I really need to communicate. Thanks a lot, Malia.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you again, Malia. And I see that Chris Christian has rejoined, so we'll go to Chris in 1 second. I will go ahead and remind all the attendees, of which we have many. I have yet to get to an email that came in today since this started, so I doubt I will get through all of them. If you want to be sure your question is posed, please go ahead and raise your hand. I think that's the only way to guarantee it. Okay, and with that, Christian, let's try this again. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Chris, I see you toggling the mute and unmuting, but we still haven't heard anything. Right now you are on mute. I'm sorry, Chris, it doesn't seem like it's working. So if you want to go ahead and send your question in via email, I will look for it specifically. Thanks very much. Okay, next we'll go to Tom Sparks. Tom, go ahead and unmute yourself. Tom, are you there? Still no, okay. We'll go with Richard. Oh, no, sorry, moved real quick. Richard, keep on. If you can go ahead and unmute yourself, very good.
Yeah,
Go
I have a question about possibly the county training CERT members from the different teams that are in Clackamas County to be able to direct traffic in case of an emergency. I understand it could be trained by police or by fire, and there's liability issues. I was a fireman in a past life, and we were trained and we directed traffic, just in accident scenes. I know that when we had the fires, there were a bunch of traffic problems where people are trying to merge onto places. Everybody's trying to go to the same place at the same time. So I'm just advocating that the county look into getting training for CERT members as an option and letting them help the fire and police. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay, very good. Daniel, did you want to address what CERT is for the audience at all?
Sure. CERT is the Community Emergency Response Teams. And in Clackamas County, they are sponsored by various different cities or fire districts. So if you're interested in volunteering for community emergency response teams, and they are trained in a variety of different response functions, that please kind of look up, and you can be able to look at I think it's CERT website or the county website, and not the county website, your city website or fire district website. Contact them, and they can get you in touch with the closest CERT team, and they will talk to you about how to get trained up and all of that good information.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. Commissioner Savas, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, one thing I did want to add, in these emergencies we've had, I live in the urban area, but I do know we have lost power, and during the ice storms we lost power, we lost cable, we lost a lot. Cell towers weren't working for a while. So I just want to remind folks, one thing I've done, I have a small generator, and I was able to power up an old TV with a modern antenna, like a little desktop antenna, and you can receive your basic TV channels. And I found that at times when I've heard quite a bit from the September fires of September 20, that people didn't know which way to go when they were evacuating, which way to go. And those maps they have on TV would be a great visual, so people knew where to go and have a lot more information. So something as basic as that can be a resource when you don't have cable or you don't have satellite or some other means of getting a TV channel. That basic antenna that you can buy today will work on some older TVs, and the newer TVs you don't need much. But practice first. And the other one too is kind of obvious, but some people don't realize it. Your car has a radio, and you can pull your car out, get reception, and you can also charge your cell phone battery, your cell phone, if you don't have electricity at your house. So Sometimes we forget that one convenience there, but those are two means that if you have nothing else, that's something that can suffice. Thank you.
Good ideas, Paul.
All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner Savas. Okay, let's see. I did see that Chris emailed in. What are the options for Clackamas County to manage illegal camping? We continue to witness people camping along the Clackamas River outside of open campgrounds, and even with the no fire signs starting campfires. Is there anything Clackamas County can do to enforce the illegal activity?
Well, the first thing, if you see that, you really do need to call your emergency responders in your area. If you're in the city, call your local city jurisdiction or call the sheriff. We do have a camping ordinance in Clackamas County. That's very low level, but we do have one. And I know that's frustrating, especially if they're starting campfires. Daniel, you have a better answer for that?
The non-emergency line to reach those resources.
All right, excellent. Thank you for that, Chair Smith, and thank you to Daniel. Let's go back to the hands. Brent Perry's. Maybe I hope I'm saying that right. My apologies. Okay, yeah. Go right ahead.
Yeah, you're fine. So most of the commissioners know me. I actually was in a debriefing for the 2020 wildfires. So I have a question for Daniel. Daniel, we're talking about evacuations. So how much has Clackamas County done to make sure that we don't have bottlenecks within the county as we did on Redland Road, Highway 213, Clackamas River Road, on people trying to escape when they got a level 3 evacuation?
Yeah, Brent, thanks for the question. We've had a lot of conversations at the county, particularly with Department of Development and Transportation, as well as the Sheriff's Office on that, as well as internally on how we were doing our alerting. And it was more about our messaging and alerting, I feel, than about roads and the volume of roads. And so one of the things we did, and Brent, I think you probably heard this as part of the debrief at the county, to make community members aware of the fires, is to put the entire county in level 1. And I think that made a lot of people feel that they needed to evacuate, and we saw a lot more people get on the roads because of that. When we're going out in presentations with the Sheriff's Office, the Sheriff's Office rep that's with us talks a lot about when to evacuate and talking about that going at level 3. You know, if you are in a level 1, you know, do just get ready and let people go and move along and get through those faster. And we also been working with the Department of Transportation Development on grant applications to have better resources to monitor roads and flows on roads. And then finally, when we're getting out in presentation, talking about not only taking one route out, right? We saw in the 2020 wildfires, and it's what people drive a lot and all the time. And when you are in a state of concern and maybe a little bit of panic or stress, you go what you're used to. But 213 is not the only way out of the county. So not everybody has to go there. So we're reminding people, and when we put out messaging, you know, look, as Commissioner's Office said, about where the map is, where is the fire, have that awareness. Can you go south? Can you go north? There's often other ways to go. And we're working a lot on having to try to put out routes, and as well as monitoring the roads to better understand those. So I wish there was a much better solution where I could make roads go and handle a lot more traffic than they do. But we're definitely looking at modifying our alerting practices as well as our messaging to get that out.
Thank you.
If I can make a quick comment, I was one of those people that had to evacuate, and I really had one way out, and that was Beaver Creek Road. And all of the little feeder roads fed into Beaver Creek Road to go north to get out of the county because the fire was coming from the south. And the other additional problem is the smoke was so thick and so horrifically dense and black. Even during the day, you had to turn on your windshield wipers to keep the smoke off the windshield and your lights, your headlights. So you didn't know where the fire was coming. So you didn't know which way to evacuate. And it was just very, very dark and ominous. And I think Daniel makes a good point. You know, we evacuate people based on the volume that's going to be on the roads. Additionally, there's no new roads or have been built in Clackamas County, probably since the beginning of the county. So you all know where your road is. And you may not like it when I say this, but you have to plan your own evacuation route. If you think you can't go north, then go south. If you can't go east, then you're going to have to go west, and you're going to have to really do some preparedness on yourself. The county and the state will do all we can to tell which direction to go. But I was thankful that I headed out Beaver Creek Road. I could have dropped down the hill, hit Union Mills Road, and gone out Highway 213, and that would have been disastrous because there were RV fires and there was explosions and everything else along Highway 213, and people were just stuck. So it is a problem, but like I said, you know, our traffic resources and our roads and the ability to traverse across the county is very limited. So just do the best you can and try to plan the routes, but I appreciate the question.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much to Brent for the question. All right, an email from Rachel. As someone who would have lost their home in the Riverside fire had it not been for community members who bulldozed a fire line at the rear of our property and fought the fire back, here are my two questions. Number one, as of a few days ago, the notices section of the county's website for its parks does not include any information about campfire bans. Fire danger is currently high, and the very recent 2224 fire was not that far from Eagle Fern Park. Why has the county not banned campfires in its parks? And if it has, why isn't there any information on the website about the ban? And what is the county doing to enforce that ban? Chair, in anticipation of this question, which I saw earlier this afternoon, I did reach out to the Parks Department for a response. If I could go ahead and respond.
Please do.
Great. Clackamas County Parks and Forestry determine campground burn bans based on the industrial fire protection level, as recommended by the Oregon Department of Forestry and approved by the Clackamas Marion Forest Protection Association, of which our county forester is a member. During wildfire season, they meet weekly to assess conditions and determine fire risk and update the level as appropriate. When these changes prompt a burn ban in county parks, information is posted on the county parks website and posted at information boards in the parks. And subsequently, our forester confirmed the current status and is updating the website accordingly. So because of this question. So very good. Thank you to that for Rachel for the question. The second question from Rachel. During the Riverside fire, there was widespread looting activity in the Estacada area, and it was days into the crisis before any roadblocks were manned. Many residents stayed behind despite evacuation orders because they were afraid to leave their property unattended. What plans does the county have in place now to restrict access to affected areas and apprehend any thieves during the next wildfire? And I will say that I believe Daniel reached out to the sheriff's office specifically about this question.
I called up the patrol captain at sheriff's office and discussed this with him. He said several different points. They do increase their patrols significantly in evacuated areas. And one example was during the 2020 wildfires, where they would typically have 2 to 4 patrols around in the areas that was evacuated. They ended up having 32 patrols going around looking in different areas, and did spend some time questioning and discussing with some folks. In the topic of roadblocks, we do put up roadblocks to signify where areas are, not roadblocks, I should say warning signs, as to don't access these roads. For that, we man them when we feel it's safe to do so. And that the sheriff's office said, just as they would not necessarily, they won't make someone evacuate their house, they will not restrict people from going. They will warn them that it's a level 3 evacuation. They will talk to the individuals in the car, but they would let them go through. But they will, when they have the resources, put individuals there to serve it. But they often are at this time also helping to do door-to-door notifications of homes that need to be evacuated.
Very good. Thank you, Daniel. I see you have your hand raised, Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, Daniel, can you speak to the chain of command. I do know there was a lot of confusion when the local fire agency was working on a fire, and they were the state forest department took over, fire department took over. And so that chain of command is really important. I think people need to understand that. Could you speak to that, please?
Sure. The way the growth of the fire typically goes, locally, the resources, so your local fire district will typically start identifying the fire, assessing the fire. And if it's a big fire, we'll call in state resources, which normally come in, partner with a fire district and a unified command. So they're both kind of in charge. And then we'll continue to fight the fire. When we get fires that were big, like the 2020 wildfires, or even an example of the 224 fire, they will call in a state, and if it got really big, a federal, what they call incident management team, which brings in lots of resources. And at that time, the jurisdiction that would typically have control of the fire signs over that control to the state or the federal team to give them that, then give that team that has come in that authority over the fire to use the resources to fight that fire. What happens at the county level is we partner with them. That fire team is in charge of the fire. We form our own command for county resources in terms of talking about shelters and providing services to the community and with the sheriff's office to determine where those evacuation levels lie. So our sheriff's office has, and local law enforcement at the city levels has the authority to create those evacuation zones. They do that in discussion with the fire, because the fire are the experts in the fire growth and behavior. And so then they make those recommendations on where to evacuate, and then the sheriff and law enforcement helps us put those notifications out and makes the decision that those are the appropriate notifications and put those out. Did I get to your question?
Very good. Thank you, Daniel, and thanks for the further clarification, Commissioner Savas. Okay, time check. We have a little about 6 minutes left before I'm going to kick it to the chair for final comments from all of the commissioners. So if you have any more questions for any of our attendees, please do raise your hand now. I see that Nancy, you have raised your hand. You have another question. Go right ahead, but please do try to make it a little bit quick.
Yes, I will do it. Amazon two-way radios are walkie-talkies, and they're on Amazon for $65. You plug them in. I have my 78-year-old neighbor with one plugged in, and I keep mine plugged in so we can communicate if there's no cell service. We have walkie-talkies in each of my family's cars turned off. So if when the roads go out like they did and you can't cross the Sandy River, that we can still talk to each other. The range is 35 miles clear, but less of it's done. Plus I have a dual fuel generator, and I keep enough propane tanks. And when we had a week with no power, I was able to work from home. I'm a medical informatics RN because I had a hotspot on my phone, and the dual fuel generator powered everything. So I wrote a document for my coworkers on how to prepare for wildfires and power outages. And you just got to think ahead, get things on sale, and just be prepared.
Nancy, that's great. Absolutely great. I have all those things too, and probably other commissioners do too. I have several generators in case family members need them. And I can't stress enough that the government may not be there to come and save you.
Right.
So you really have to take this into your own hands and try to do the best preparedness if you can. Before we get off, there's a lot of links on that Dylan and staff have provided for you to look at. If anybody wasn't able to copy the link off in the chat, please send an email to the email bcc@clackamas.us. That's the easy one. Dylan, you can repeat an email and we'll send you the links on what to do and how to get prepared. Also, the Emergency Preparedness Council folks are available to help you as well. And Daniel can help with anything about the radios and that type of situation. Thanks a lot, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. Very good suggestion, Chair. I can be sure that we get all the links in an email for anybody who emails in the BCC address tomorrow. And also we will put all the links again in the chat at the end of this. Very, very good. Commissioner West, I saw your hand up. Did you want to say anything or not? Oh, you're still on mute, Commissioner.
I wanted to thank Nancy for those insightful tips. And I wonder if there's a place where there's a chat board or somewhere online where people can share their best practices. This generator worked for me. Make sure you have this much propane for a week. Maybe this radio worked well for us, and this other neighbor says this one didn't work well for us. There might be a really good way to kind of coordinate some people with experience like Nancy that can help us kind of make it easier to kind of spread the word about maybe what we found to be some suggestions on how to put these kits together and how to get your home ready.
I don't know about the shared chat board. Do you, Daniel? I just don't know the resource. Oh, you're still on mute. Sorry.
I know there are a lot of different boards out there. I don't have any particular that I've identified for sharing of community members. I would look at Nextdoor or things like that, but I don't know anything specific.
All right, very good. The last note, well, depending on the time, Allie, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Still not. I don't know if we had this problem earlier, Allie. So sorry. And it does not seem to work. Okay, I guess the last one will be in this email from Eric. What resources does the county and its partner agencies have to assist organizations and contractors with wildfire recovery and preparedness projects? So again, what resources does the county and partner agencies have to assist organizations and contractors with wildfire recovery and preparedness projects?
Daniel.
I'm not sure I fully understand the question. I would say that great resources in terms of defensible space are the website that was mentioned earlier. And as I did say, we're working on getting some grant funds over to Clackamas Fire District 1 for some fuels reduction. To do that, I would also contact your local fire district, and usually the fire marshal, but it could be another representative, has some great information on different wildfire preparedness recovery and projects. And if there's anything specific, we do have a long-term recovery group that is transitioning into our community organizations active in disasters that can provide potentially some recovery information and resources.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much for that, Daniel. Okay, I think looking at the time with 10 minutes left, I think we're going to go ahead and leave it there. If that's okay with you, Chair, I'm going to start wrapping up to go. Very good. To give enough time to commissioners to give parting thoughts. Before I pass it to Madam Chair, I would like to thank her, the other commissioners, and Daniel Neibauer for joining us tonight. Thank you all. If you have any further thoughts that you would like the board to know, you can always email them at, as Madam Chair said, bcc@clackamas.us. We're putting that address in the chat now, as well as all the links that we have shared earlier today, and the link for the contacting disaster management further, as was in the slides that you all saw. Lastly, if you would like to be kept aware of these town hall notifications, please be sure to sign up on our email updates page. We'll share that link as well. Specifically, the monthly e-newsletter or the Board of County Commissioners list should do it. The latter list receives a weekly email about what the board has lined up for that week as far as issues and policy session topics and business meeting segments. We will drop that web address in the chat. That is all from me for tonight. Thank you very much for everyone joining us. I will now pass it to Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dylan, and Daniel Neibauer, thank you for your answers to the questions. And I've noticed that the questions were very informative, and it sounds like people are taking more responsibility for themselves, and that's really the best preparedness that we can do. Commissioner Savas, would you like to start?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for participating. I would, few things I have learned that have been working pretty well for people is to, number one, most important thing, if you want some advice on how to harden your property or protect your property, reach out. You heard it before, but I'll stress it. Reach out to your local fire agency district, and sometimes they will either give you advice in the firehouse or come out sometimes and look at your property to see how they can help you. You also heard about being prepared for emergencies, whether it's radios, water, all the essentials. Of course, always be prepared. We never know what's going to happen tomorrow. I also, not only if you aren't willing to get some advice or don't have a fire district that can provide you that on-site advice for your property, walk your property and just make sure that you have defensible space, that anything that might be flammable, that's not really necessary to have, tall grass, even things like that. Trim your trees, be mindful of what could possibly catch fire and how close that might be to your home. If you're about to re-roof your home, consider a fire-resistant roofing material as opposed to some other materials. So composition asphalt roofing is still relatively fireproof to some degree, not as good as perhaps as others, but you ought to get a contractor's advice on that for the area that you live in. Gutters, same thing with rain gutters. Rain gutters collect a lot of needles and leaves, and you could get even a firework could land in your gutter, set your home on fire. So those are the practical things. Again, just do some research or contact us. We're happy to help. Be safe out there. And again, thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Those are good suggestions. Commissioner Schrader.
Yes, I really want to thank everyone for coming tonight because I remember visiting the fire damage with Chair Smith before you were actually even sworn in as chair. And it was very disheartening to see the level of destruction that had happened in our rural communities, Estacada. I know that Sandale, the other in Malala in particular, we're suffering real threats of really having to get up and leave quickly. And so I think the notion of being prepared is the key takeaway tonight. And that means being prepared also with water in your car, potential food, blankets, flashlights. And I do know, as a past member of the board of the American Red Cross, that you can actually go to them and buy disaster preparedness kits. And I indeed carry one in my car at all times. So it's not only the cell phones, the radios, those other things. Make sure you have a medical kit. Make sure you have a disaster preparedness kit. I would also go to the Red Cross page on how to prepare for disasters. And you might even want to consider at some point becoming a Red Cross volunteer. They were present as we were going all through this. I know they helped us house people as we were trying to find places for people to evacuate to. And it is my hope that, knock on wood, we don't experience anything to that level this fire season. So far, there have been fires, they've been contained. It hasn't been as serious as it could get, but I think we all need to remain on alert and make sure that we're ready to leave if necessary. I don't live in the rural area any longer. I live in Lake Oswego, but it is a heavily wooded area, the entire core of the city. So even the urban areas need to be prepared because the conflagration can start not just in the rural areas, but also in our urban areas as well. So thank you all for coming, and thank you, Daniel, and thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. Commissioner West, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. Couple things stand out to me. One is, every time I come into one of these meetings, even when I was a Wilsonville City Councilor, I learned so much. I always pick something away that I can implement back home and share with my neighbors. And one of the things that I think is a running theme here is it's essential that you create a plan. And that you discuss that plan with your family, with your neighbors, and that how you're going to respond to various types of disasters that can hit you. So, Wilsonville was, I think, a level 3 or 2 during those fires, all the way over to by Charbonneau. I mean, we were a bit concerned for a few days there that it could go in that direction. But the natural disaster that hit my home area very, very hard in Wilsonville was that ice storm. It was detrimental to Wilsonville. And but we have to plan for the fires, we have to plan for the ice storms, we have to plan for the earthquake. And some of those might take a little bit of creativity to make sure that you have all those covered. And to learn how to do that, and how to come together with your community. And then I think you got to practice your evacuation route. I think you should know, if it's happening here, we're going to go this way, but if it's happening there, we're going to go that way. And I think that speaks to Chair Smith saying, you may have to go a different direction. So there might have to be a couple evacuations route, and the family should know those things. Make it a fun Saturday, maybe. And then I was really impressed and I need to get some radios. And then I need to maybe be able to have a few people throughout the neighborhood that we're friends with that we can speak to each other, make sure we're okay, and then how to check on our neighbors and those that are more vulnerable in our communities. I'm really heartened and confident coming into this relatively new that Clackamas County is learning from the past experiences. We always learn from these experiences. I feel like we're never fully prepared, but every time we come away a little bit more resilient. So I got a lot out of this. I think I'm it looks like a lot of people care and participated on this topic with us. So thank you to everybody that jumped in on National Night Out. So you guys, and hopefully you saw some time to go participate in those activities and those festivities. But once again, find a way to become a little more resilient every time you hear a meeting like this. I know I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner West. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Daniel, for this outstanding evening. Dylan, thanks for your work this evening. I'd also like to thank those people who are involved in one of our 5 disaster management subcommittees. They're very important. I'm a liaison to the community preparedness subcommittee, and I can tell you that committee is doing a lot of really good work. So please keep up the energy in those subcommittees. Let's not forget to do a survey on those people that live in our areas who might be disabled, elderly, and might need some special help on preparing for fire safety. Also, I learned this morning up in Washington State, there was a fire that was sparked by the chains on someone's trailer heading into a camping area. Let's keep that in mind too. That seems to be a problem. Also, don't forget, reach out to your neighbors, families, make sure they see the Clackamas County website, and for sure, make sure they get on the public alert registry. Thanks very much. I appreciate the evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl, and all commissioners for participating tonight. What I have noticed about the people calling in, we're much more sophisticated than we used to be. I do think Clackamas County has come a long way in disaster management preparedness than the fire of September of 2020. It's a combination of a lot of efforts that went into that. The state has also stepped up to the plate, and the response to a newly seen fire is very fast. Portland General Electric also has installed cameras across the region at very high levels of elevation, and they can spot a fire probably 3 hours before anybody else can, and then they report that to the authorities. That's what happened most recently in the fire above Estacada. I viewed that system that they have, and it's quite tremendous. It's very technical, as you can imagine. And they also have wind meters on their power poles. And so that's very important, as we know the east wind was a catapult to the fire of 2020. We are doing better. We will seek to continue to do better. There's always room of improvement. But if I have one parting thought is, people, you must help yourselves to prepare the best you can and reach out to Clackamas County and others to have your own preparedness going forward, because the government may not be there to save you, unfortunately. With that in mind, I see no further business at the town hall. We will adjourn, and thank you all for participating.
Be safe.